Captain Lena Morales stood at the helm of the USS Hartford, eyes fixed on the narrowing corridor of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. The Red Sea was deceptively calm, its mirror-like surface reflecting a crimson dawn, but the tension in the air was unmistakable. Around her, the bridge crew worked in disciplined silence, the quiet punctuated by terse exchanges over encrypted channels. They had entered hostile waters. This was not Morales's first deployment, but it was the first time she could feel the geopolitical pressure tighten like a vice. Every decision carried weight far beyond her command. On the starboard display, commercial vessels scattered across the sea like drifting ants. One wrong move by any of them could spark a global incident. That's what the briefings had stressed, and that's what the Houthis wanted. 3 weeks earlier, the Iranian-aligned rebel group had escalated their maritime campaign. A Liberian-flagged tanker carrying Saudi crude was struck by a drone launched from Houthi-controlled territory in western Yemen. Though the crew escaped unharmed, the explosion ignited not only the ship's deck, but also fears in shipping circles. Since then, 6 vessels had been hit, 2 of them sunk. Insurance premiums quadrupled. Merchant ships either rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope or risked navigating a corridor slowly turning into a combat zone. Morales didn't need the intel reports to know why the crisis was accelerating. The Houthis weren't just trying to prove military prowess, they were making a statement. With every attack, they clawed attention back to a forgotten war in Yemen and sent a message to Riyadh, Washington, and Tel Aviv. The Red Sea was no longer safe, and the world's commerce would pay the price. Her executive officer, Commander Amir Darwish, entered the bridge with a data slate in hand. "New recon footage," he said, offering it without preamble. "Our drones caught 2 mobile launchers tucked into the cliffs east of Al-Hudaydah, camouflaged. They've been moving them after each strike." Morales reviewed the feed, jagged coastlines, shadows sliding across heat-shimmered rock, and there, in a blur, was a cylindrical shape being loaded into a launcher. "Looks Iranian," she muttered. Darwish nodded grimly. "Fateh 110 derivatives, solid range, naval-grade targeting upgrades too." The implications were clear. These weren't scavenged munitions or improvised launches. The Houthis were being equipped with precision weaponry. The Red Sea wasn't just a conflict spillover, it was becoming a proxy battlefield. Meanwhile, halfway around the world, a different kind of war room buzzed with equal urgency. In a windowless Pentagon command center, intelligence analyst Tessa Nakamura parsed through signal intercepts. Her screen glowed with overlapping spectrograms of encrypted radio chatter, some in Arabic, others Farsi. The patterns were evolving. Unlike the ragtag chaos of earlier years, this was disciplined, layered coordination. She leaned toward her microphone. "Pattern change confirmed. The Houthis are using Iranian comm protocols. Echo signatures suggest Quds force involvement in target selection." The senior officer beside her frowned. "Is it direct command and control, or just consultation?" Nakamura hesitated. "Still parsing? But this isn't just training support anymore. They're embedded. It's coordinated." Her words weren't hyperbole. The Houthis were transforming, from a guerrilla insurgency into a sophisticated threat actor with regional ambitions. And with each attack at sea, the distinction between a rebel group and a regional proxy blurred further. Back aboard the Hartford, Morales paced the deck at nightfall, her boots clicking softly against the steel. The sea now shimmered beneath a crescent moon, its deceptive stillness broken only by the gentle hum of radar systems sweeping the horizon. Every sensor, every pair of binoculars scanned for silhouettes against the sky, quadcopters, missiles, speedboats. Anything. She thought of the message she'd received earlier from CENTCOM. Heightened alert, ROE adjusted. Defensive fire was now authorized on any fast-approaching object within a 10-mile radius. It was a cautious nod to the inevitable. Below deck, Darwish leaned over a terminal displaying vessel traffic data. We've got 3 tankers requesting escort. They're routing near Ras Isa. That's Houthi strike range. Authorize a detachment, Morales replied. Keep them tight and scramble the interceptors. I want constant air overwatch. Even as she gave the order, her mind was already racing ahead. How long could this go on? Every ship that passed through this choke point now carried more than oil or containers. They carried risk, leverage, and vulnerability. And behind every Houthi strike lay the ghost of a larger agenda. In Sana'a, in a dimly lit room guarded by silent men with rifles, Commander Saleh al-Houthi listened as an Iranian advisor outlined their next phase. Saleh's face remained unreadable, but inside, a storm brewed. He knew they were playing a dangerous game, one that could bring American warships closer to their coast or ignite direct confrontation with Israel. But for the first time in decades, Yemen was no longer ignored. The world had to look now, and in that, he saw opportunity. As night swallowed the Red Sea and the Hartford continued its silent vigil, Morales studied the horizon once more. Somewhere beyond the radar's reach, a drone was likely in flight. Somewhere, a launch command waited for the right coordinates. And somewhere, a rebel with a camera was preparing to film the next strike that would circle the world in 30 seconds. The conflict was no longer hidden in Yemen's mountains or buried under diplomatic reports. It was sailing on the world's highways of commerce, and it had just reached the front door of the global order. The drone strike came just after dawn. It was silent at first, undetectable by the human ear, until the radar crew aboard the Hartford caught a flicker on their scopes. Lieutenant Jansen's voice broke the early morning quiet. Inbound object, high speed, low altitude, bearing 270. Captain Morales was already moving. Confirm hostile signature. Scramble interceptors. But they were 3 seconds too late. A shock wave ripped through the bow of a civilian tanker just 5 nautical miles ahead, fire bursting upward like a wounded volcano. The sound arrived an instant later, a low concussive boom that sent tremors through the Hartford's steel deck. Morales watched the explosion unfurl, jaw set, heart thudding. Casualties? She asked. Unknown. Distress beacon triggered, Jansen replied. Crew appears to be abandoning ship. Darwish leaned in. It's the Al Safina, registered in Panama, carrying refined fuel. We just spoke to her captain an hour ago. Morales didn't waste breath cursing. Deploy rescue craft, bring them aboard, and get me CENTCOM, now. The strike wasn't the first, but it was the most brazen. The Houthis had hit a foreign-flagged vessel, escorted under the watch of an American destroyer within visual range. They weren't just signaling control of the Red Sea, they were challenging global power in open daylight. While rescue crews retrieved oil-slicked sailors from lifeboats and burned flotation rafts. Intelligence feeds poured into the Hartford's war room. Nakamura's voice came through a secure channel. They've switched to a new frequency band. We believe they're using commercial satellite channels, encrypted piggybacks on old Iranian codes. Darwish frowned. So they're blending in with regional traffic? Exactly. Makes them harder to track, nearly invisible until they launch. Morales spoke over the channel. We need a kill chain, and we need it fast. Nakamura hesitated. We have one possible window. Satellite imagery just flagged a mobile launcher hidden under camouflage netting near Ras Isa. Thermal suggests it fired less than 20 minutes ago. Any drones in the area? Yes, but Yemeni airspace is hot. Risk of man-portable SAMs is high. Then we strike from sea, Morales said. Cue the Tomahawks. That order shifted everything. Within minutes, guided missiles arced into the sky, splitting the clouds above the Hartford in coordinated silence. Half a world away, analysts at CENTCOM watched the feed, holding their breath. Somewhere, behind layers of stone and brush, Houthi operators realized too late they were exposed. A final frame, infrared bloom, confirmed the target was hit. It should have felt like a victory, but Morales knew it wasn't enough. For every launcher destroyed, another would emerge. It was like fighting shadows. You could hit them but never hold them. In Sana'a, Commander Saleh al-Houthi reviewed the aftermath from a bunker safe from satellites. His lips were tight, not with fear, but fury. The Americans had struck back quickly, more coordinated than before. They were adapting, but so would he. "Begin moving Phase 2 assets," he ordered. "Deploy decoys. Shift everything east." The Iranian advisor beside him offered a small smile. "They've taken the bait. You control the tempo now." Saleh nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. The Red Sea wasn't just a battlefield, it was leverage. Each successful strike forced global insurers to pull coverage. Port authorities in Djibouti and Sudan were becoming hesitant. The entire shipping route was becoming toxic. And with every disruption, pressure mounted on Israel, the Gulf states, and the United States to act. Desperation was his tool. Escalation, his weapon. But not everyone shared his confidence. Back aboard the Hartford, a rescued sailor from the Al Safina sat in the ship's infirmary, wrapped in thermal blankets, skin blackened by smoke. His eyes were wide, stunned, not with injury, but disbelief. "They knew," he said, voice hoarse. "They waited until we were in range. It wasn't random. They wanted us to burn." Morales listened, fists clenched behind her back. It matched the pattern. These were no longer opportunistic strikes. The Houthis had intel, real-time, pinpoint accurate. Someone was feeding them updates from the sea lanes. Darwish stood beside her. "We need to assume compromised routes. No more standard navigation patterns. Randomize. And double-check all AIS transmissions," Morales added. "No more blind trust in commercial channels." The crisis was evolving. What had begun as irregular warfare had turned into a hybrid theater, where every tanker, every tugboat, every fishing skiff could be a sensor, or a target. Nakamura's next update brought no comfort. "We've intercepted communications between Saleh and a new group we haven't identified before. They're referencing operations in Eritrea." Morales turned sharply. "Eritrea? They're expanding the theater? That's what it looks like. If they establish shore batteries there, it'll widen the crossfire zone." For a moment, the bridge fell into silence. Then Morales, steady and calm as always, gave the order. "Prepare the fleet for rapid redeployment. This war is moving." Outside, the Red Sea reflected a crimson sky once more, but it was no longer dawn, it was dusk, and the dark was just beginning to rise. Darkness blanketed the coast of Eritrea, broken only by the faint glimmer of phosphorescent algae stirred by the waves. Lieutenant Commander Darwish scanned the satellite relay, his finger hovering over a blinking grid on the holographic interface. 3 new heat signatures, stationary, just beyond the civilian port at Massawa. "They're hiding them in fishing villages," he muttered. Captain Morales, standing beside him on the command deck of the Hartford, nodded. "Iranian tactics, decentralized, mobile, and human-shielded. We strike, and we light up international outrage. We don't, and they control the corridor." In the war room below deck, Nakamura's voice filtered through the intercom. "We've confirmed signals intel. The Houthis have positioned modified anti-ship missiles along the Eritrean coastline. Reverse-engineered C-802S, camouflaged under fake humanitarian tents." Morales turned from the screen. "This crisis just became a regional one. Time to brief the fleet." The orders came swiftly. No open engagement. Rules of engagement held tight, eyes on only. The USS Lassen moved in from the east, shadowed by drones scanning the coastline. The Saudis dispatched 2 patrol craft to the Bab al-Mandeb. Tensions soared. Every ship in the region was primed, every finger brushing a trigger. But Morales knew deterrence without response was just noise. That night, in the belly of the Hartford, a small team assembled. Elite SEALs, handpicked for urban infiltration, reviewed the schematics of the target zone. Intelligence showed not just missiles, but advisors, foreign, possibly IRGC-affiliated, stationed alongside the Houthis. Civilians moved in and out. It was a maze of risk. "We go in silent," their leader said. "Tag the launchers. Confirm the presence of foreign agents. Exfil before daylight. No casualties if we can help it." By midnight, they were in the water. The SEALs emerged silently on the Eritrean shore, their forms barely distinguishable from the shadows they moved through. Heat plumed from a small tented compound. Inside, a table cluttered with launch console components. Surveillance drones above confirmed 2 missile racks hidden beneath netting and tarps. One of the SEALs tagged them with laser markers. Another snapped infrared images of a man in fatigues marked with an unfamiliar insignia, likely a new Houthi paramilitary wing. Then a sound, soft but distinct, a footstep in the sand. The first shot rang out without warning. One of the SEALs. Dropped, shoulder grazed. Silenced return fire stitched through the dark. They scrambled for cover. No alarms, no screaming. Just 4 combatants exchanging death in whispers. By the time the team exfiltrated, the message was clear. The Houthis were no longer operating alone. They had outside tactical support, and they were ready for elite-level incursions. Back aboard the Hartford, Morales studied the infrared images, her jaw tightening. The man at the console had a familiar face, known from Iranian training operations in Syria. His presence here confirmed what intelligence had feared. This was no longer a proxy conflict. This was hybrid warfare backed by Tehran. Nakamura's voice cut through again. Satellite recon also shows unusual traffic at the Sudanese port. Large cargo, could be dismantled launchers or mobile radar arrays. Darwish cursed under his breath. They're building a network. Eritrea, Sudan, Yemen, triangulating the corridor. "We're running out of time," Morales said. "If they complete the triangle, they'll have total fire control over the southern Red Sea. That puts not just military vessels at risk, civilian shipping will collapse." Aboard the civilian vessel Nordenwind, Captain Elisha Juma, a Kenyan mariner with 30 years of experience, stared at the radar screen. Red Sea routes were becoming graveyards. Every insurance update shrunk their coverage radius. The crew had refused to sail without naval escort, and even then morale was cracking. That's when the second missile hit. Launched from an unmarked site near Suakin, it skimmed just meters above the water, slamming into the hull of an Egyptian-flagged freighter. No casualties, but a firestorm of steel and fuel. Global news captured the blaze from commercial satellites. The Red Sea lit up social media, and world markets trembled. Now, global leaders were no longer hesitant. Emergency sessions at the UN security briefings from Tel Aviv to Washington. Even Beijing issued a rare statement urging de-escalation through strength. Morales read the headlines without flinching. She was already 3 moves ahead. "Operation Tidebreak," she said. "We hit the triangle, hard and fast. Multi-pronged strike. Yemen, Eritrea, Sudan. Same night. No time to reposition." Darwish nodded. "If we fail?" "We won't," she said flatly, "because if we do, the Red Sea dies." That night, the assault began. Drones buzzed over the desert like angry hornets, painting targets with precision. The Hartford's missile bays opened like silent jaws. Stealth fighters screamed low over the waterline, each one zeroed in on command trailers, radar arrays, and mobile launchers. In under 7 minutes, 27 separate targets were hit. Saleh al-Houthi, watching from a hardened bunker near Hodeidah, saw the feeds go dark. One by one. His commanders didn't answer. His radar was blind. He turned to his advisors, silent, pale. The triangle had collapsed. For now. By morning, the Red Sea was calm again. The sun rose over the water, touching charred steel and fractured sand. The Hartford remained on station, its crew exhausted but alert. Morales stood on the deck, wind brushing her face. "Did we win?" Darwish asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze lingered on the horizon. "We bought time," she said. "But winning, that's another war.